masculinity? Is there authentic masculinity? And if so, how does that contrast to toxic masculinity?
Yeah. I
So I
mean,
guess we'll start with you, Josh.
yeah, I mean, no, just diving in. I guess shameless plugs. This is a Theology of the Body radio live radio show. For me, at least, that's a big proponent of theology of the body. Right? It's God created man, created woman, made each with these unique and inalienable traits that can't be mimicked by the other gender. Why? Because it's actually meant to be what's called a reciprocal relationship. We're always meant to be not that one is stronger, bigger, whatever than the other, but that we were meant to be in a relationship where we feed off of each other.
Yeah.
And I think the whole goal is to take away the authenticity of a man in the sense of breaking apart the order that God had naturally ordained. So it's not that a man should ever feel like they're over his wife, but it is his job as a man, as divine assignment to lead and to care and to cultivate. And then obviously as a feminine, it is the role of the woman to nurture, to care, and to love. So it's like we each have these unique traits that are special and dignified by our gender, that now we live in a time where it's kind of wants to wash those things away, and no one knows what's what, and no one knows where they're going. And then that's where we dive into that toxic masculinity. I mentioned this in an episode before,
Yeah.
where we're talking about how now this new woke generation, where they're now saying, oh, you need to be in your feminine, or you need to be in your masculine energy. I'm like, yeah, we've been saying that for hundreds of years. The church has literally said, we literally have a whole teaching called Theology of the Body that says that a man has a unique intrinsic, if you want to call it energy, that is masculine, and women have that a feminine energy, which is we're calling energy, but that's not what it is. But that's what this culture is diving into. So there's this unique intrinsic thing inside of each and every one of us that we're called to be as men or women. And
Yeah.
what happens, it becomes toxic when there is no set guidance for it, right? There's no set, like, this is what it is. Now everything is whatever you feel and whatever you think. And
Yeah.
that's toxic because it's not right. It's not going to feed, it's going to drain.
Yeah. So it's something interesting that you said, and I'm gonna go with you, Raul. Like, you said that as a creation, we have a set of we're programmed to be in a specific way, right? And I think that's what a lot of young people have a problem with in society today. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what are some of the characteristics of a real man without having to cross that line of, let's say, narcissistic behavior, which is the controlling, the manipulation, the need to make everything about me and not about you, right?
Yeah.
So, like, how do we identify that? Like, how do we identify what authentic man looks like?
Yeah. I mean, I also don't think that an authentic man has to be one that chops trees down and kills animals with his bare hands and cooks the meat. That's not what that doesn't identify a man or masculinity in general.
I mean, it was an era that
Yeah.
the man had to do that.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
Well, and then you're tying into to what it used to be, like our ancestral stuff, because that was a man providing, right?
Correct.
So yeah, no, I think that's the case in that sense, right? And but again, that doesn't dignify what masculinity is. But tying that in, a man should desire to be a provider. That's because that's a natural state in us. So it's like there's a lot of situations where men are demasculized because they're put into a position where they're not necessarily honored. Like Chris Rock made this joke. He's like, all dad goes to work and does all these things, and he goes and kills himself, and all he gets is the big piece of chicken. Like that's the only level of respect he ever gets.
Yeah.
So it's like, are there characteristics that might seem more masculine? Absolutely. But do those characteristics define manhood? I don't think so.
Do you believe, and I guess it's a question for you, do you believe that women nowadays are not validating men as they should be validated?
See, back in the days, 60s and the 70s, right? There was fathers in the home. There were men, and there were family, And then if we go to the root of, just church 101, man, woman, they have a child, they're married, da da da, right? Once you start eliminating that, this is why we have all these different agendas. Because basically, what the enemy wants to do is erase God from the order. And how do you do that? By getting rid of man, right? So now they make anybody that stands up for their family, or that's a husband, or that's a real man, now is toxic, and it's just an agenda. I'm a father of two, so when I think about being a dad, it's not just being the one that's telling them what to do. There's a thing that I have to do that the mother does. The mother does the nurturing and everything.
Yeah.
But once my daughter falls, she looks to me, and I gotta be like, "Mommy, it's okay," and she'll keep playing. It really is supposed to be meshed together, and not having the man in the house, and not having, and that's another thing. There's been what, about 50 years, right, in this country, that there's been no men in the home. America gives a woman money, right? The woman gets money to not, if they get Section 8, they can't have a man that lives there. If they get welfare, they can't be a man. They can't be a man anywhere, so that they can get help.
Yeah.
Now, if you're paying a woman to be self on her own, what do you need the man for?
Yeah.
What do you need the man for? That's what's going on. There's making it so easy to not have a man in the house. That why would women want a man there?
Yeah.
Why would you need him for?
It's a divide and conquer mindset.
Exactly. So, but what the nation really wants, or what the enemy really wants, is our children. If there is no man there, it's easily. How many families haven't gone through girls getting molested by their stepfather because their real father is not there?
Yeah.
How many boys been molested by their stepfather? I'm not demonizing anybody. I'm just saying that the role, el protector, the authority is not there.
Yeah.
And I know fathers that they always wanted to be there, but they couldn't work it out with the woman, and But if the protector's not there, these things start to happen.
Yeah.
Everybody that back in the days, the mother was the one that instilled the faith into the children. The mother, because she was home. But everything is so expensive now. Mom and dad has to work.
Yeah.
And it's just, I believe that the agenda is to remove the order of God.
Well, and just to dive into that, I mean, the reality of statistics show us that if there is no father in the house, you're more likely to be incarcerated. Men are more likely to go to prison. Women are more likely to have father issues, but they're also more likely to have less successful lives. So it shows us that when you diminish the role of a man in the house, no matter what, you could have an amazing mother, and she could be such a great person, but there's still a factor to it that's missing. There's still something in there that's not amplified. And we talk about faith. Statistics show us that if the father follows the faith, the kids are 90% more likely to follow the faith. If just the mother alone follows the faith, 60%. And if neither of them, almost non-existent. So it shows you the role in that. But it's hard to instill morality in people when there is no sense of morality at the home, period.
Yeah.
And
what do you guys think about passive men? What does that mean to you?
men that just don't care. They're just...
Yeah, but what does that look like? Because so this is the argument that a lot of girls nowadays are making, right? So we went from, the man is the protector, the provider, the support, right? And women have another specific role, right? But because of those social economic let me finish.
No, I'm laughing.
So
I'm not even gonna say that, but I'm laughing
because of those social economic changes that we went through. For example, women are now working; they're more independent, right? Financially, they're more independent. I believe that there's a lot more women in college than there are men, right? So a lot of changes. The society has gone through a lot of changes lately, right? I would say within the past 3-4 decades. But the point is all right, men are supposed to be that, but then we have been telling men that they are oppressive. For example, I see a lot of girls that they feel threatened when somebody, a guy, takes them out to eat, right? Or they're eating or they're dating or whatever. and the man wants to pay the dinner, and I think that's what you and I
Yeah,
were
yeah, yeah,
discussing
yeah.
before.
I was like, no,
It's
it's not
like,
gonna happen.
if the man wants to treat you, a lot of women are receiving that as a threat. Like no, like I can actually. What are you suggesting, that I can't pay for my food? That I can, and the way I see it is, well, we're not trying to oppress you. Like if I was trying to oppress you, I would be asking you for money. You know what I'm saying? Not the other way
Yeah,
around.
yeah.
Because I'm trying to protect you. I'm trying to provide something good for you. What do you guys say to that?
I mean, it's a interesting, it's a double-headed sword because men can never win. So it's like if you want to pay and you want to provide, then you're trying to oppress. But if you don't pay, you don't provide, now you're a deadbeat.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like you're gonna lose. It's a lose-lose. And just there's one line from Kanye that I remember all the time when you said the welfare thing is like he said in his song, he said they got us on welfare, they got us in hell here, hell yeah, because they got people dependent on welfare and dependent on the government for stuff like that. So when you say the man can't be in the house, stuff like that, the truth is that if I can keep you on a short leash, I have you on a leash, and it doesn't allow people to be free and to grow into things. So the necessity for a man to be in the home and to provide it's gone. I don't think that you as a culture we should equate success to the necessity of man or women. Yes, are there situations where there are women that are making more money than the man? I absolutely.
I mean, of course, the women are gonna make more money because they're the ones that's getting educated,
Yeah.
right? Men, if you look, men are not graduating. Men are not going to school. Men are not preparing themselves.
Yeah.
Men right now are actually more prone to being like dentro de clínica. They're depressed. You're not from a broken home, right? Are you from a broken home?
Technically.
My parents are separated.
No, but boy, you raised in a broken home.
I grew up with my mother because my father was in the United States, and I grew up in DR, in the
Okay.
Dominican Republic. So I would talk to him here and there, and I would see him only once a year. So technically, you could say that mom and dad were not together. My father never saw me being raised.
Exactly.
So yes.
The reason I talk about these broken home situations was you raised with your mom and father? No.
No,
You was raised by your mom.
later on.
But
Yeah.
you was raised
Yeah.
by your mom. I was raised half with my mom, and then I was raised half with my dad. So we're all sort of a product of broken homes. But that doesn't mean that you're done, that there's no hope for you. But I'm telling you that because those homes weren't like this,
Yeah.
right? If this is the concept I'm trying to say. If they weren't together, we missed out on certain things because of it. It doesn't make us who we are today because we learned from it. But had we had that, we'll probably be different in certain aspects. We'll look at relationships different. But when she also only saw her mother haciendo todo,
Yeah.
pagando todo, eso es el role que ella va a coger. Y lo mismo con un hombre is raised by his mom. His mom is everything. You know what I'm saying? So when he gets with a girl, he lays all her stuff on the girl.
Yeah.
My mom used to do it, so why can't you do it? But she's not your mom.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? She's not your mom.
The father presence in the home is so important. And a little bit of my story too. Like I didn't grow up with my father present emotionally. And I remember I would see him once a year, but I developed no relationship with my father whatsoever. Okay. And I remember that that affected me a lot, and I didn't notice that until I was older. And I noticed that I developed a sense, a belief that I wasn't enough, and that also came from the little Lisbel that perceived her father's absence as like, well, you're not enough, and that's why I'm not here. That's why I left. Like I perceive it as an abandonment instead of a separation because of economic difficulties.
Yes.
So when I was older, and that was sitting in my unconsciousness, and it wasn't until I worked on myself, and with the help of God too, I was able to realize that I was angry at my father, and I used to tell him like, Papi, I love you, yo te quiero, like I don't resent you. But there was some sort of pain that was just sitting there that I had normalized growing up. And that's the longing that I'm talking about. So let's take that example and now into, for example, girls that don't grow up with their fathers, right? So I was listening to Jordan Peterson, and he's a clinical psychologist. Talks
Yeah,
about
Jordan Peters.
meaning and responsibility. Those are his major focus areas of focus, and he was talking about masculinity, and I want to read something to you guys because I thought it was very interesting what he said. So he said, and I'm quoting, very few women receive words of encouragement from men in their lives. Younger women are more likely to be attractive to men who exhibit narcissistic behavior, right? Because when especially young women, they confuse fake competence with actually competence in the pursuit of power, right?
Okay.
So, for example, an example of this is like I hear a lot of guys saying, "Well, girls only like bad boys," right? So, but what do you mean by bad boys? We're genuinely attractive to a guy that. What does that look like? Well, he is assertive. He stands up for himself. He is powerful in the sense that he pursues what he wants.
I
He's
didn't know
not
I was a bad boy.
right. He's not.
Bad
He's
boy.
not afraid
Bad boy.
to take risks. Right. So narcissism. If we take this example, right, what does that look like? Controlling, manipulation, right, and that's not healthy. I would say that is toxic masculinity. I would say that's not masculinity at all. I think that's just toxic behavior because a woman can also be toxic in
absolutely.
that way. A woman can also be narcissistic. When a woman grows up without a father, and she's kind of like naive in terms of relationships, she's more likely to fall into these narcissistic personalities and relationships because what they're seeking is that security, is that provision, is that confidence.
Yeah.
But the problem is that the perception is distorted because they dissociate the competence, which is, for example, I would like to have a competent man, right? A man that I would rely on, that I don't need to question his ability to provide for the family. And I'm not saying like financially only. I'm saying in general, provide security, provide comfort, provide all these things. But his point is that it's very difficult for women to differentiate those things, right? So what is your take on that?
I don't think we have great examples. Well, I mean, I feel like a lot of people have tragic stories of people they've dated or they've pursued, and it obviously didn't fare out how they thought. But it's because they were looking for that particular quality. And I said this once in a person, and they didn't find it, they couldn't fix it, they couldn't help it. So what happens is that we get into this cycle of dating trauma. We date the people we couldn't save. So now we become and
Wait,
that
wait,
same
wait, wait,
person
wait.
is
Hold
the
on,
same
hold on.
person.
Say that again. Say
So
that
we
again.
tend to date the people like it tends, right, because it happens like you fall in love or you find a way, you find a person, you're like, this is my person, but then you see all the narcissistic tendencies, and now you want to find that person in everybody else. So the person you couldn't fix, you couldn't
Wow.
save, this becomes a person that you're looking for in every other person. And this is why women go and say men are horrible. No, it's just the one guy you're looking for is a terrible person.
Yeah,
And
right,
you've
right.
been addicted
It's
to
what
that.
you used to it's what you're used to, right? Experience, because you haven't found a man that shows you authentic love
Yeah.
with responsibility.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, how can these men these days really show responsibilities if they never learned it? They
Yeah.
never had
Those
someone
paternal figures.
They never had anybody to teach them.
I believe that responsibility is learned within the family system when the child is at a young age, right? Nobody is born responsible. It's a learned behavior, and that's why we need to learn responsibility through structure, right?
So I'm going to be devil's advocate just for fun. So there's this theory called the broken windows theory, right? Where we assess behavior based on where you grew up. So environmental things, right? Changes. Over the years, I've kind of moved away from that because yes, I do think some of things affect you, but those are like trauma responses to certain things that happen in your life. But then it diminishes the reality where there are a lot of really successful people who came from really bad places.
Correct.
Like I personally know a couple people that are millionaires that they came from the hood, from the hood, like not like, not like a hood adjacent. They were like hood invested, like they were in there. And they've done extremely well for themselves despite not having a father figure, or despite not being in the best socioeconomical standings. I think there's a couple of characteristics that tie into that, and those kind of people desire better, right? So yes, I do think that there are certain things that are trauma, and then that leads to being responsible, that leads to being efficacious, that leads to being in things that bring you deeper. But is it the deciding factor? I think at the end of the day, and not to get too religious on it, but it also comes back to free will. You have the choice to do what you're going to do. I think some things are characteristic traits that you choose and you decide, and then there are the aspects of it that are trauma-based, but then you also choose to live into that trauma or to live away from it. So,
But for example, so how did you, Josh, learn responsibility as a man, as a young
A
millennial
boy.
in
Whatever.
society?
Where did you begin?
my mom had this thing called la correa, and she,
Y la chancleta también.
con toda tapaila lo que había.
The pot, not the wooden
Whatever
spoon
was in
is
her hand was going.
European.
The Italians, they use wooden spoons.
Yeah.
No, but it's like, for me personally, like me learning responsibility, I think I had siblings that I had to take care of, right? So
They're younger than
and yeah, they're younger than me, so like I had to like really be the role model and do.
But
things
how
for
did you
them.
perceive like your role as a man by taking care of your siblings? Like that's what I want to get to.
Honestly, it just the natural flow of life. I don't think my mom ever like.
No te encargó.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
you
to you it was
Yeah,
like
just-
natural male instinct
Yeah.
that you just you believe that you're born with,
Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of carry you through that.
Yeah, I think there's the desire as men to help and to provide, and that's a natural thing, and in that point in time, that's where I was helping, I was providing. So, yeah.
So although you didn't have that role model, like
In that sense,
in
yeah.
that
I mean,
sense,
and there's other people around, but I also think that, again, just to not downplay those people who didn't have that and were extremely successful and are great fathers and are doing all these things. I think at the root of it all, it's decision. I choose to fall into the habits of the things that were before me, or I choose to break habits that have been tried to be implanted in me. And it doesn't mean that, for some people that's a later thing. You might have been living on it this whole time, and later on you're like, no, I need to stop this, and it's a choice. No,
Yeah.
you choose.
yeah. What about responsibility? How did you obtain that, I guess, responsibility for your own life growing up? Like, how do you think you
What's
obtained that?
crazy about me learning responsibility, I had to learn at a young age. I grew up in a home that my mom was an addict. So there wasn't a parental guidance. My mom was either out or strung out or not around at all. I was the oldest boy, and I have two younger brothers, Richie and Julio. And my older sister, she's a girl. So I'm the one that had to go out and sort of, do provide.
Yeah.
So, I was a little boy. So I would either work with the super sweeping, or will help ladies up the stairs with their bags, or I'll go in the supermarket and I'll pack bags, And those are things I would do to sort of make $1 here, whatever there, to sort of, buy stuff so that we can eat.
Yeah.
the environment
Granted,
forced you to do that?
yeah, granted, I had to learn like that. But, when my mom was sort of okay, she was a mom.
Yeah.
But she was my mom, so I didn't know the difference. I thought all moms were like my mom.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But then when I started visiting my friend's house and I see, I open the refrigerator and they have food and, they have dinner, they have
Yeah.
breakfast, they have, they actually talk to each other.
Not eating in bed.
Yeah, not eating in bed. I didn't even have a bed. I had like a mattress on the floor.
Yeah.
That's what we had. We were so poor. And this is in
Yeah.
the United States. This is not like in DR. This is in the
Yeah.
Bronx.
Yeah,
You
not
know,
in el campo.
No,
Yeah.
this is in the Bronx, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So we lived all that. So I wouldn't say I was responsible. I was surviving.
Yeah.
And then that just made me more like, that's where a lot of people, I guess when people see me, they probably wouldn't see that. They're probably like, oh, this muchacho. I've been through that,
Yeah.
and then I used to have to go out and look for my mother because my mother used to disappear for days.
Wow.
And I didn't even know what. So I was already, I didn't have any fear. But meterse en un crack house, you know,
Yeah.
the kind of, excuse the cojones you gotta have for a 10-year-old kid to walk in. Yo, you see my mom? You
Yeah.
seen Jackie? I'm walking around the neighborhood looking for her. And then it came to a point that I stopped looking for her. I know that she was gonna get home whenever she was good.
Done. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was just, imagine, how sick do you need to be to leave your children abandonado?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my father literally lived across the bridge in Washington Heights. Across the Yankee Stadium bridge, that's where my dad lived. And we lived in those conditions. It's not that my dad didn't want us to have a better situation. Is that because my mom was strung out on drugs, his issues, they couldn't be together. So we suffered that blow. But responsibilities was actually forced upon me.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that they're like, son, I'm going to teach you how to do this. I didn't have that.
Yeah.
It was
Right.
basically, yo, I know how to run in these streets. I know how to get it done. I'm going to do it.
Which goes back to your initial point, which is, you know, that not everybody who grew up without a father, you know, doesn't make it in those terms or doesn't learn responsibility. I mean, in your case, it was your environment that forced you to do that. So now you mentioned that you have kids. How do you see yourself as a father compared to, you know, how, you know, your own experience in that father, that not having a father constantly in your childhood? What's the difference?
When it comes down to my children, I get very emotional because that's probably the only thing I've ever done in my life right. It's a lot of things that I've done in my life wrong. But I feel like the daddy, like I keep that shit tight. I'm daddy.
Yeah.
You know, like when the relationship I have with my kids is just different. You know, and granted, they have a phenomenal mother. Phenomenal mom. She is on it. But even with my shortcomings, she allowed me to be a great father. Because también a veces, you know, si no se llevan, she allowed me to be a great father.
That's great.
You know, and the things that, the kind of relationship I have with them, it's a real one. You know, my son right now is 15 years old. And he
Difficult
never
age.
and he never had to experience what I experienced at 15. My daughter's 13 years old, and she never had to experience what I experienced at 13. But their mom had the mother. The Darlene always had her parents, so she's raised different because ella sabe the role of dad, the role of mom. So she knew how to navigate that. I didn't know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm basically I'm going to her. I'm what the beat of her drum. I'm dancing to the beat of her drum.
Yeah.
Because she knows what a household's supposed to be ran like. So I didn't know, but I felt like I always it kind of looked like I was giving her all the responsibilities, but no, I was letting her lead because I didn't know how to do that. Yeah. But after I learned, it was like, okay, I got it. I know what I'm supposed to do.
How did you learn how to lead?
How did I learn how to lead? Okay, so if the woman doesn't give you the space to lead, you won't be able to lead.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a constant power
Friction,
struggle. It's a power struggle.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. She was raised in a home where her father was. So she understood.
That
you know what I'm saying? It's God, right? Her dad, her mom, and then the kids. That's the order. So she understood that.
Right.
So ella no se metió conmigo when I was being a father. But I wasn't being a father like the father I had.
Yeah.
My father was different. My father was rough. My father, he had to beat our ass. We gotta, I wasn't a good kid either. But I was running the streets since I was like 9 years old. Like what you expect, you know what I'm saying? I learned how to read at 12. I learned how to read at 12.
So what you're saying is that you learned how to lead through making mistakes along the way.
You have to make the mistakes. That's what makes you a great father. That's what makes you a great father. When you made those mistakes and you allow your kids to make certain mistakes but you're there with them. You're not putting them down because they made those mistakes.
Yeah.
You know, but my job as a father is to make sure that they're not in an environment that the mistakes that they make is going to be detrimental to their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's why it's really important, like what we were talking about. If the man and the woman is not synced, you know, like what they say, marriage, one. If y'all not one, then y'all can't make two. You know what I'm saying? Y'all can't make three. But a lot of people ain't one, making 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. So ellos lo que están creando lío.
Yeah.
So now let me ask you a question. So let me just revert it for a second. So now you have kids, but so do you want to marry again? Like, do you want to get married again?
I mean, anybody that's doing what we do, that's what we strive for.
Right. So you believe in the sanctity of marriage. Okay. You believe in marriage. That's your goal.
A little bit.
Okay. So so we
You believe it?
of course. So that's our goal. So we can all agree. How would you like to lead as a man in your future marriage with your future spouse?
I mean, that's a very optimistic question, assuming that I'm even going to get married. I don't know. I mean, the more centered, faith-based that the marriage is, the easier it becomes.
Correct.
Because it's an understanding of the roles that we're assigned. So I think, I also think that, like, a perfect example, dear friends of ours, Tim and Raquel, that is like relationship goals, like marriage goals. They're a super holy family, and and I'm sure they probably want to kill each other sometimes because that's part of living with people.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that they speak to each other and the way that they work together as a team to raise their kids it's beautiful. It's a beautiful example because those kids,
a beautiful example.
It's not like mom said I could do this and dad didn't. It was like, well, no, let me talk to mom and let's figure out what we're going to agree on. And it's a team. So I think that's the best way.
But can I point something out? Esa pareja, both of them
are holy people.
No. Not only that, they both had their moms and dads in their home.
Yeah.
Tim was raised with his mother and his father, right?
Shout out to
And
Stella.
then you have Raquel that was raised with her mother. So that's why it's easy. The fluidity is easy, you know?
We're actually running out of time, but I just want to end with this question for you guys, and maybe you can do it in a minute or so. What do you expect? How do you expect to be treated from your future wives?
Future wife, like
what would make you
king.
really happy? What would you say?
I said like an omnipotent king. That everything I say is right. In a perfect world, kidding. I think mutual respect is a huge thing. I think being able to be transparent and respectful. I think that's you resolve a lot of problems because we have a generation of men and women, but it's very prominent in women, especially my female friends. I see it all the time, where they might be the most wrong person in the room, but you can't tell them they're wrong, and you're gonna hear all about it. And you cannot you can have a healthy relationship in any way if that's not the case.
Coming from a point of care, but also a point of humility.
Yeah.
Humility.
Yeah, I mean, we're not perfect, but you can't be the most perfect person in the room.
Well, I have that kind of syndrome before, and I learned the hard way.
¿Cómo?
What about you?
El amor es muy bonito. Love is beautiful, but respect is everything. I just want to give respect, right? Because it's easy to say I want to get respect. I want to give respect. I wasn't that respectful to women before. Just gotta educate ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Gotta learn our mannerisms. Gotta learn how we speak to. There's ways. But I learned that through raising the kids. So
I think you guys get a lot of pressure from girls, from women nowadays. That like, you need to do this. There's like a list of expectations that we have for you guys. But you guys are so simple that you literally just want to be loved. You want to be respected. And listen to me from a point of care. And that's it.
Yeah.
Yo no cojo lucha con nadie. Yo no cojo lucha.
No coges.
No, yo no cojo lucha. You're going to have me, but you're going to have me mechanical. That's it. You're not going to have me emotional. You're not going to have the real me if it's like that.
Yeah.
Oh, usted va a hacer lo que... Está bien. Yo cumplo. Yo pago todos los biles. Yo pinto la pared. Yo lo trate, lo lavo, el baño, todo. Pero a mí tú no me vas a tener.
Yeah,
Tú vas a
but,
tener un robot en tu casa.
but then in that case, entonces eso es mejor no tener nada, right? Like, it's better to not be in a relationship if you're not gonna have if you cannot be
No,
vulnerable and open with your true self with somebody that you're with, so then why are you with that person?
Bueno, la cosa es que if it's a marriage, ya you made your vows. That's what we believe.
So you gotta work through it.
You gotta
But I'm
stick to
saying
it.
like a person that you're dating.
Well, that's
not
why.
even-
Okay, so the dating is like a job interview, bro, for marriage. You know what I'm saying? That's where you learn if she makes the cut. That's why you got to be so honest in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because if everybody goes with their best
Yeah.
dressed self to a date, y su mentira más heavy, ¿tú me entiendes? Un resumen de bulto.
I'm coming in Crocs and sweatpants.
¿Tú me entiendes? Exactly. ¿Tú me entiendes?
Because this
Tú vas
is
a tener
me
un-
on a daily
tú vas
basis,
tener
you get
un
what you
moco
get.
seco ahí, pa.
Ni te
I'm gonna be
bañaste.
looking up for no reason, para que lo vea. Ay, tigre, pero...
All right. So you want to be respected. You want to be looked up with respect. You
I want to
wanna-
give respect.
you-
That's
you-
the problem I
because
have.
I mean, yes,
Reciprocity.
Yo soy loco.
assuming that you guys are respectful towards her,
Yeah.
right?
Sí. Sí, aquí no se trae a puerta. Pero si hay que traer
Ni se come en la cama.
No se puede comer en la cama. En las habitaciones no se come. Eso es un red flag para mí.
Yeah.